A woman named Rebecca, a school lunch lady from Nebraska with 2 kids, set up a GoFundMe page because she could not afford her cancer medication. She died. Senator Bernie Sanders just put that story in front of the CEO of Merck, whose cancer drug costs $191,000 a year in America and $12,000 in Canada. Then he turned to Bristol Myers Squibb and asked why Carolyn from Florida has to stop taking her blood thinner because it costs $7,100 a year here and $900 in Canada. Watch how these CEOs respond when they run out of answers. Drop your reaction below and subscribe so you never miss when Big Pharma gets held accountable.
Let me remind our witnesses that while the Health Committee does not swear in witnesses as a general rule, federal law at 18 U.S. Code Section 1001 prohibits knowingly and willingly making any fraudulent statement to the Senate, regardless of whether a person is under oath. I would also say, in response to many of your testimonies, we are aware of the many important life-saving drugs that your companies have produced, and that's extraordinarily important. But I think, as all of you know, those drugs mean nothing to anybody who cannot afford it. And that's what we're dealing with today, that millions and millions of our people cannot afford the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs in this country. Now, my time and the time of all of the members is limited, so we're going to just, I'm going to ask.
Wait, are we starting the clock?
So my time is limited, so I'm going to start by asking all of you a number of questions, and I would appreciate it if you could respond with a yes or no answer. It turns out that in our dysfunctional and extraordinarily expensive healthcare system, hundreds of thousands of Americans have gone to GoFundMe in order to raise money to pay for their healthcare needs and for their prescription drugs. Let me ask Mr. Davis, if I might, have you ever searched on GoFundMe for your cancer drug, Keytruda?
No, I have not.
Okay. We have. I and my staff have. And we have found over 500 stories of people trying to raise funds to pay for their cancer treatments. One of those stories is a woman named Rebecca, a school lunch lady from Nebraska, with 2 kids who died of cancer after setting up a GoFundMe page because she could not afford to pay for Keytruda. Rebecca had raised $4,000 on her GoFundMe page, but said the cost of Keytruda and her cancer treatment was $25,000 for an infusion every 3 weeks. Mr. Davis, and please, yes or no, is it true that the list price of Keytruda is $191,000 a year in the United States?
That is close to being true, yes.
Thank you. Is it true that that same exact drug can be purchased in Canada for $112,000 a year and $44,000 a year in Japan?
Generally, yes.
Mr. Davis, even though the price of Keytruda is 1/4 of the price in Japan compared to the United States, does your company, does Merck make a profit selling Keytruda in Japan?
We do.
So what I understand is you make a profit selling Keytruda in Japan for 1/4 of the price that you sell it for in the United States. My question to you is a pretty simple one. Will you commit to lowering the price of Keytruda in the United States to the price of Japan?
Well, Senator, I think first I acknowledge the prices in the United States are higher than they are in many of the countries you said, and not for all drugs, but for many drugs, and that's the reality we face. But I think it's also important to point out that you get access in the United States faster and more than anywhere in the world. We have 39 indications for Keytruda across 17 tumor types in the United States. If you look across Europe, it's in the 20s. If you look across Japan, it's in that number or a little bit less. So there is a reason why the prices are different, and we need to be careful because we are also seeing in those markets that they are unwilling to support the innovation, and we are working hard to try to get them to understand the need to help fund the innovation.
I apologize for cutting you off.
That's fine.
There are 2 other, but I did want to make this point. Again, we all appreciate breakthrough and important drugs that you and other companies have produced that save lives. No debate about that. But I do want to point out that after all is said and done, and after all the money we spend on prescription drugs and healthcare in general, the life expectancy in Japan is 9 years longer than it is in the United States. Senator Cassidy talked about Canada. The life expectancy in Canada is 6 years longer than in the United States. Life expectancy in Portugal is 6 years longer. Life expectancy in the UK is 4 years longer. Let me ask the last question to Mr. Davis. As I understand it, you made $52 million in total compensation in 2022. Will you commit to not accepting a single dollar more in compensation until there is not a single GoFundMe page for Keytruda?
Well, I can tell you at Merck, we are very much sensitive to what's happening with patients. That's why we have very important patient assistance programs. We commented on the fact that we have over 800,000 patients benefiting, where we provide free drug for those who can't afford it, as well as other assistance programs that help with copay and others. So we are very committed as a company to doing what we need to do to try to help alleviate the challenges patients face that you're focusing on, and that's my focus as the CEO.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boerner, with Bristol Myers Squibb. Carolyn from Florida says that she cannot afford Eliquis, and so she will, quote, stop taking it, though I need it to prevent the risk of having a stroke, end quote. Mr. Boerner, again, yes or no, please. The list price of Eliquis is $7,100 a year in the United States. Dr. Melissa Barber, an expert at Yale University, has estimated that it costs just $18 to manufacture a year's supply of Eliquis. $7,100, what we pay, $1,800 to manufacture. Is it true that the same exact drug, Eliquis, can be purchased in Canada for $900 a year?
Senator, that's roughly correct.
Let me ask you this. Even at 13% of the cost in the United States, does Bristol Myers make a profit selling Eliquis for $900 a year in Canada?
Senator, we do make a profit.
All right, so you're selling the product for 13% of what in Canada, of what we pay in the United States, and obviously you sell it there because you make money. So, Mr. Boerner, will you commit today that Bristol Myers Squibb will reduce the list price of Eliquis in the United States to the price that you charge in Canada where you make a profit?
Senator, we can't make that commitment primarily because the prices in these two countries have very different systems that prioritize very different things. In Canada, medicines are generally made less available, and it takes oftentimes considerably longer for those medicines to be available, on average, roughly.
I do apologize. Life expectancy in Canada is 6 years longer than it is in the United States. Mr. Boerner, your company spent over $12 billion on stock buybacks in 2022. Given that reality, can you tell Carolyn why you can't lower the price of Eliquis?
First, Senator, let me say no patient should have to go through the types of choices that the patient you just described go through. It is our commitment to continue to bring down the price of medicines in the U.S., and I would love the opportunity to bring down the price of Eliquis in the U.S. Our net prices, what we are compensated, have actually over the last 5 years declined. At that same time, the list prices have increased. Why is that? Because of the complexity of this system and the billions of dollars in rebates that we have provided to intermediaries that unfortunately do not go to lowering the price of medicines like the patient you just described.
Again, I apologize. I want to get very briefly to Mr. Dueto, who's with Johnson & Johnson. Mr. Dueto, is it true that the list price of Stelara is $79,000 a year in the U.S.? Is that roughly right?
It's roughly right, but it's also true that the average discount of Stelara in the U.S. is 70%.
I
So
know
it's
all of that, and we've dealt with PBMs, and we're going to get to that, I'm sure, in this morning. Is it true that while charging $79,000 in the United States, that the exact same product is sold in Spain for $18,000?
I don't know the price in Spain. I can tell you that the average discount in the US is 70%, so the price that you quote is 30% of that.
Okay. Mr. Dueto, is it true that it costs less than $15 a year to manufacture Stelara?
The manufacturing cost is only a component that goes into our pricing. When we price our medicines, we're looking at the value that the medicine brings to the healthcare system, our ability to continue to invest in research. We invested $15 billion last year. And also, we look at affordability. The average copay, if they use our copay assistance programs in the US, for a patient using Stelara is $10 to $15 per month.
I apologize.